Oric Consulting presents the Oracle Podcast with Anton Marshall. Hello and welcome. This is Anton Marshall for the Oracle.com. We're on the line to the Minister of Economic Opportunities for the Western Cape, Minister Alan Winde. Thank you very much today for your time.
And your pleasure.
I'd like to start off by asking, in terms of the Western Cape and its relationship with small and medium business enterprises, what, in your opinion, is the current state of that relationship? And from your point of view, do you feel that the Western Cape as an entity is accommodating and welcoming of small and medium business enterprises?
Well, our economy is based on the SMME sector. We don't have that many of the big corporate companies. The primary sort of basis of our economy is small and medium enterprise. And it's about how we facilitate and create an environment that's easy to do business, that's easy for entrepreneurs to start business. And so I think since the day I started in this executive position 6 years ago, that has been a big focus on how do we create an environment that's easy to do business, to grow your business, how do we incentivize and how do we find funding mechanisms. So we have various mechanisms in place. They are from a funding fair, which we hosted just a short while ago, which created an environment where funders, be they banks, be they angel investors, could meet with entrepreneurs with good ideas, right down to our own funds, which we would budget for, and they would be focused in certain areas. And then, of course, things like the red tape reduction units, which the primary job is how do we remove those barriers, those legislative and regulatory barriers that get in the way of businesses, be they for growth or even just startups. And these are services that are put in place in really trying to make it an easier place to do business and to get business to grow.
It's my understanding that it's already been made easier in the past few years. So one of the things that some of the small businesses have been talking to us about has been, for example, the paperwork has been simplified somewhat in that time.
Yes. So, I mean, one of the areas is we've got our supply chain processes. When I first got into office, if you wanted to do business with government, it was 11 forms that you had to fill in every time you tendered. We've now got a supplier database in place where you fill in the form once. You've got a tax clearance certificate that's logged onto the system. All the departments can then tender, or you can do business with any of those departments because we've got on record all of your paperwork. It's much, much easier. And of course, we narrowed it down from 11 forms down to 5 forms. So it's looking for efficiencies in the system, making it easier, and of course, still continuing or striving to find easier ways. I think my ideal is, would you be able to do business with us just over your mobile phone from wherever you are? We've got to set those kind of goals long term. And we also hold open sessions where we meet with business. We are trying to identify where they find it difficult to do business with us. I bring along the right people, whomever they are, be they different departments, be they the procurement officers, be they SARS, be they banks, and how do we meet with businesses, identify where their blockages are, and then try and streamline these processes. Because that is actually my job. My job is to create an environment which is enabling. And so we're always open to good ideas, and we're always partnering with various organizations and companies to try and make this an easy place to do business.
And then I think the next thing, which probably from an investment point of view is going to make or really create the ideal platform for business, and that's the big investment that this government's making in broadband.
Right.
So that isn't all the Department of Economic Development, but it's across government. But I think within our realm of creating an enabling environment, once we've got the hotspots rolled out, specifically, and our focus is how do we roll hotspots out in our poorer areas where the big corporates have not got the connectivity. And we've already seen with our pilot sites, it really does. It enables students, it enables small businesses, it enables so much. So I think over the next 3 years, there's going to be Wi-Fi hotspots in every single ward across the province. and how do we enable through that pathway or that roadway to the world? How do we enable businesses? And I think that's going to be a really big one.
It's really interesting you see that as a way forward, because my next question was actually going to be, we all understand there are going to be challenging times ahead for us as South Africans in terms of economy and growth and things like that. I wanted to know that aside from going very positively into that question of connectivity, what are the major challenges that you see SMEs facing in the current climate? We've got load shedding and we've got petrol costs.
And that was the whole big drive around red tape. I think inefficiency in the system, whether it's government inefficiency or whether it's just general lackluster, whether it's problems with skills. You can see skills demand is a big issue. We have the average age of an artisan in our province is 55 years old. We need young people in the artisan space. We doing the big projects, and these are generally seen for the bigger companies. The big investments coming from outside, which are things like the RDZ in Saldanha Bay. And sure, there are big investments coming from big companies who want to build oil rigs and do that kind of thing. But you know what enabling environment that is for SMMEs, to supply the welding rods and to supply the machinery and to service those industries, but also the enabling environment around job creation, which is the skills space. And I think skills, it is also an area that we have huge focus on, and I think that's a big challenge. And then overall, I think, I think at the moment we've got a whole lot of government bureaucracy in the way. I just think of the tourism industry and how this whole issue around visas is affecting so many small businesses that have just got themselves going. They just start to build a market. We've had incredible growth out of China and out of India, and those two areas are hit the hardest. So I think in many areas that's where government gets in the way of the economy, which is a big problem going forward. And that's obviously one of the key positions that I have to take up. That's my job, really. It's creating a conducive environment. And so we've got to identify which are the biggest blockages. If I look at land reform and agriculture and businesses involved in that space, have we got enough access to water? Do we get water rights and licenses quick enough? And the answer is no. We need to speed these things up because these create the environment so people are willing to invest.
All that being said, and with all that being known, what's the short answer from your side if somebody comes up to you and says, as a small business, what's the best advice you can give me about going about doing business with government?
Well, especially SMMEs, that has been a big focus. So we have something called a database, which we ask companies to register on. And we started this because the Auditor General was coming at us about, and both businesses as well, about the amount of red tape it took to tender with government. We narrowed 11 forms down to 5 forms. You fill them in once a year, you put it onto the database and you tender with government, trying to make that part easier. And then I think it's maybe also building the brand that it is actually not bad doing business with government. But also, my message, and it's all the time, I mean, one of the areas is funding. The kind of money that we put into SMME funding is still small compared to what the big financial institutions are putting into business. Right. The kind of procurement that is offered through government is actually quite small. We're probably looking at about 18 billion rand in goods and services in the province from local and provincial government. This is a 300-400 billion rand economy. It's a small space, but I say specifically to PDR companies, they have got advantages in doing business with government. So use that advantage, and then use it as a step up into the main economy. Don't just get stuck in the advantage space. Don't just use your points to keep doing business with government. Use it to get your company going, and then start tendering, countrywide, continent-wide, and grow your business into this. It must be a competitive business, but use the leg up. That's maybe also an area that we have now for the last few years while I was Minister of Finance. We supported, but it's cross-government, where we hold these workshops with suppliers to government. So if you're on our database, and specifically the people I like to talk to are those that keep on tendering with government but never seem to get the job. I like meeting with those companies and saying to them, well, why didn't you get the job? Let's have a look. And normally when we have those discussions, we take along SARS, we take along banks, we take along, all the different institutions and the different departments and municipalities come along. And we get them to try and answer questions. And if it's about a tax clearance certificate, then SARS is right there. And if it's perhaps about bridging finance, how do we get that in place? And there's some exciting things that have happened through those interactions with businesses who perhaps have found it a bit more difficult.
Minister, thank you so much. Your answers were very comprehensive, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And hopefully we can catch up in about a year or so to see how far we've come down the line.
That'll be great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Minister.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye.
You have been listening to the Oracle Podcast, brought to you by Ore Consulting, www.oreconsulting.co.za.